Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on Torah and Life. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So, an integral part of Jewish life is prayers. In fact, typically, a Jew prays 3 times a day. On special occasions, there are added prayers. For example, on the Sabbath, there's what's called the Musaf, the additional prayer, on the Sabbath and the festivals, and thus there are 4 prayers. On the holiest day of the year of Yom Kippur, there are 5 prayers. There's an added prayer of Ne'ilah, which is the conclusion of Yom Kippur. In any case, as I said, prayer plays a very important role in the life of a Jew in the observance of Judaism. Question: how about a non-Jew? Is there a importance to prayer? Is it imperative? Is it something that one needs to focus on and pray every single day? Albeit maybe not 3 times a day, but is there any virtue to it? So in this series that we're starting now with this class, I'm going to try to discuss it. And first and foremost, I want to spend the time now, the next couple of minutes, to look in the sources. Let's look in the Tanakh, in the Bible, in the Torah, and find, does prayer have any whatsoever connection to the, quote, non-Jew? In other words, is it exclusively for the Jewish people, which, as I stated, the Jewish people are obligated to pray, and it plays an integral and fundamental key role in the life of a Jew? But the question is for the non-Jew. Well, let's start first and foremost with the book of Kings 1, Melachim Aleph. You look in chapter 8, verses 28 through 40. This is King Solomon, the greatest and wisest king. He is the one who had the merit to build, to construct the house of God. Everybody calls it the Temple of Solomon. It's not the Temple of Solomon, it's the Temple of God. He had the merit to build it. And when he's done the construction and he's inaugurating the place, he makes a special prayer. And as you can read through the verses, he asks that when anybody comes here and he's talking about his people, the Jewish people, for whom this holy temple was built especially for, to serve their connection to God, he asks in detail, if one should sin and they come here, and they pour out their heart before you, then the Almighty should give them atonement. One has a problem and comes and prays before you, and he speaks about the individual or the collective. He goes through the whole gamut of various prayers that may come up. Then, when you look at verse 41, and this is the conclusion, this is almost like the punchline of his prayer. He says that also to this foreigner that is not part of your nation, Israel, that will come from a distant land, come to this place. Why? Because in verse 22, because they've heard about your great name and they want to pay homage to it. Verse 43, he says, you will listen to the prayers from your holy dwelling place in the heavens, and you should fulfill the prayer as they call out to you. So we see, yes, indeed, the prayer of every living thing, the prayer of every single person is valuable to God, means something to God. In fact, when it comes to the prayer of the, quote, foreigner, this is when he uses the expression of you in your holy dwelling place. Even higher, perhaps, God will be, so to speak, in a very much higher and loftier place to receive, to accept the prayers of the foreigner even more than, quote, your people Israel. So that's as far as when the Holy Temple was built, where fundamentally the rules, the guidelines, the principles of prayer were laid down. Now let's go to the prophecy of the end of time. Go to Isaiah chapter 56, verse 2, after speaking about what's going to be in that time, the time of redemption, and about the virtues of everyone, even, quote, the stranger that comes from a strange land. And then God says, Vahaviotim el har kodeshi, I will bring him to my holy mountain, and I will make them rejoice in my house of prayer. And then he describes how he'll receive their offerings. And he concludes with the words, Ki beiti beit tefillah yikareh b'chol ha'amim. For my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. So indeed, prayer has a place for every single person. Prayer is something that connects everyone to God. In fact, the word prayer in Hebrew comes from the etymology of the word tofel, which means to fuse, to connect. When we pray to God, we are connecting to God. Of course, inherently, every single human being that we were created in the image of God, are connected to God. However, that connection can sometimes become superficial, distant. What happens when we pray? We become actively and obviously connected. So this is part one, that yes, indeed, prayer applies to everyone, Jew and non-Jew alike. And here I presented just two of the biblical sources for it.